Hey folks, it's Patriot Nurse. In this video, I want to discuss the dark side of nursing and the nasty little truths that people are not going to tell you. And this is coming from someone who's obviously been a nurse for over a decade and also in that time worked various different specialties. I'm really going to kind of unveil what it's like to be a nurse nowadays and also some of the disturbing trends that I've seen really since I started out as a fledgling nurse. And in my professional capacity, not only have I worked as a nurse, but also I've worked as an adjunct instructor as well. So for a community college, I actually was in charge of overseeing clinicals for nursing students. So I do have a little bit of capability to speak on these things, but also because of some of the change that I've seen over the past over a decade now, I've seen some trends that are definitely on the downward spiral, not just for nurses, not just for the healthcare industry in the United States, but really for the trajectory of what people can expect out of their healthcare. So first things first, when it comes to nursing staff, I have seen a drastic change. It used to be, and I'd be willing to bet that my sister nurses out there and my fellow healthcare providers, you've probably seen quite similar to what I'm about to say. So leave me a comment below and let me know what you think. The shifts that nurses are expected to work has changed drastically. It used to be 8-hour shifts were standard, and now it's 12. And there is one reason for it, and that is profit. Because the entities that are running the hospital, of course, and hospital administrators are some of my least favorite people in the world. And I haven't met any of them that are good people, to be quite honest. When you look at the real reasons why this shift change happened, it was because hospitals wanted to be able to only hire effectively 2 shifts of people and therefore cut their overall benefits that they had to pay out by 30%. Because when you have 3 different shifts of people and 3 different rounds of employees, you have 3 different rounds of benefits you have to pay out. So what better way than to edge people out and keep people in 2 different shifts and have 2 different cycles of benefits? So that's why they do it. It's not for continuity of care, and it's certainly not for better patient care, because when you have nurses that are working 12 hours, plus having to, by the way, finish up charting at the end of the night and commute home backwards and forwards each day, these people are working 14 hours easily. And then, you're not going to be able to go to sleep right away. So the quality of life is abysmal. The burnout is real. And really, the patients are the ones that suffer out of this, because a nurse is not going to be able to sustain this for long. And ultimately, it's one of the reasons why many nurses have retired early, and it's one of the reasons why the quality of care is so terribly abysmal nowadays, is because your nurses are very, very tired, and they are short-staffed, of course, because, we don't want to have to pay benefits to people. And then also, when it comes right down to it, the patient loads are just astronomical. And this is one of the unintended consequences of making healthcare affordable and free to everyone, it seems, except for the people who pay taxes. Because after all, of course, we have to provide gender-affirming care and sex changes to every illegal that decides they want to come in here. So when you look at a system that's overall burdened, not just from the gender-affirming care for migrants, but when it comes right down to it, offering free and taxpayer-subsidized, let's call it what it is, taxpayer-subsidized care to people who aren't from here, who have no business participating in our healthcare system, you have an increasing load of patients on a diminishing workforce that is overall worse and worse equipped to deal with it. From a personnel standpoint, I also want to speak about the change that I've seen in the actual workforce of the nurses. The nurses that I have seen recently are absolutely gutted of empathy in many cases. And I'm actually making this video because I recently had a conversation with a friend of mine who is a brand new nurse, and she was having a rough time working her first gig. And it really got my wheels thinking, because the advice that I gave to her is similar to what I'm telling you here now. And that is, you have to understand that most of the people that you're going to work with as a nurse are very toxic individuals. And in many cases, they have been raised in broken homes devoid of a solid and secure father figure, which affects really everything about their social processing. And also, they've been raised dependent upon screens. The net impact of all of these changes and shifts societally is that you have people who are effectively cyborgs, incapable of rendering empathy. And what empathy is there is rapidly burnt out and used up. And so when you're in an environment like this, toxicity takes foot and goes absolutely insane, which makes a very difficult work environment for decent people and decent human beings who do have empathy. So, of course, your burnout's going to be that much higher. Now, another note here about the overall shift in care. Because this is your reality of your workforce, you have to understand this as a patient potentially seeking to receive care. if you're going into the hospital like this, in many cases, the worst people overall, as far as human beings, are going to work night shift, and that is how it is. Now, I am not saying that the day shift is absolved from sociopaths, because let me assure you, I have worked with them. That's a thing. When it comes to night shift, though, a lot of times the people who are working night shift are new, and that's the first job that they can get, and those are typically the good ones. The ones who are working night shift, in many cases, long term, are there because they really don't have a life outside of work, or they choose not to, or the life that they do have, it circles around work, which means all of the people that they sleep with and all the drama that comes with that comes right back into work when they clock in. So understand that if you have a family member that is staying in the hospital, you are leaving them at the mercy of that dynamic during night shift. So do not leave your family members overnight in the hospital for that reason. And I'm not trying to be alarmist here. I'm just calling a spade and telling you exactly how it is. So these are just some of the things really to be aware of. And the last thing that I want to touch on is the shift in effectively making healthcare accessible and affordable for all. Well, what this did, whenever you subsidize something from a governmental level, you're going to get more of it. So when you subsidize poor healthcare choices and you take taxpayer dollars and you fund people's procedures and people's drugs who have effectively received the consequences from 30 years of poor lifestyle choices, what you're doing is subsidizing poor lifestyle choices at the cost of people who are making good lifestyle choices, but who happen to be paying into the tax system. So we are really on the verge of an implosion here in the United States, not just because of people who have made poor lifestyle choices, but also because, let's face it, there's only so much money to go around, and we have a population that is aging. And there are people who are dealing with diseases and conditions that they didn't choose. I'm not saying that everybody who deals with something is dealing with it because they just chose poorly. He chose poorly. No, not everybody is in that case. But when it comes right down to it, when you've got fewer people paying into the pyramid that are taken out from it, pyramid's going to collapse. And that is exactly what Social Security and Medicare are. They are Ponzi schemes, and they're going to collapse. So if that is the case, like it is, and you know it's going to be worse and worse for the future, the best thing that you can do for yourself, regardless of if you're a nurse or if you're a family member of someone who is in chronic need of medical care, the best thing you can do is diversify your medical knowledge. The battery cut out here. I had to go in, plug it back in, and now I'll continue with what I was saying. So you need to make sure that you're diversifying your medical knowledge base. And so this is one of the reasons why, despite having a bachelor's of science in nursing and being an RN, I decided to go a different route, or some would say a complementary route, and get my master herbalist certification. And also I have a master's in herbology. So when we look at the future, I see a lot of nurses making their exit at this point. And their exit from healthcare will probably mean ultimately that they don't continue doing nursing, that they're just not excited about the terms and conditions that are their employment, whether it's the people that they work with who are toxic, or the 12-hour shifts and the holidays and the every other weekend, and just really an abysmal quality of life. I see a lot of nurses exiting and going into a different path. And so actually a lot of my students who have either come to class or have taken my online classes, they are nurses or EMTs or other types of healthcare providers. And the beautiful thing about my classes is that it doesn't matter if you have a background in healthcare or if you're someone who's just brand new, but you have essentially a 7th grader's knowledge of biology, you can still take the class. And so I see a lot of people who have really derived benefit, not only from my classes, but really just from expanding their horizons, because they know ultimately that this thing's coming down. The medical industrial complex in the United States is hemorrhaging money. It's also hemorrhaging legitimacy after COVID, because once they saw that, rolling up your sleeve didn't actually make anybody healthier. And if you were a male under the age of 35, it actually significantly increased your risk for a whole bunch of different stuff. But if you were a nurse, you were expected just to shut up and comply, weren't you? Because the guys over there in administration and corporate and hospital, they had your best interest at heart, didn't they? So a lot of nurses were just basically saying after this, you know what, peace out, I'm done. So I think it's possible that in the years to come, not only from state level referendums and state level changes on the ability of herbalists to practice and of practitioners who are alternative practitioners to do their thing, I think that you're going to see that more and more people are A, dissatisfied with the outcomes of the medical industrial complex, but B, they can't afford it. I mean, how many people do you know of Perhaps you are even one of these people personally who your healthcare premiums before the Affordable Care Act were at least achievable, but now it's not even a thing. You can't afford it, particularly if you have a family. So a lot of people are just saying, you know what? It actually, after running the math, is better for me not to have healthcare, not to have insurance, because it's more cost effective for me just to go and pay cash out of pocket. I know a lot of people like that. I also know a lot of people who did the math personally from this and spent the money to come to my classes and then ended up saving multiple trips to the doctor that they would have had to spend just by virtue of what they've done, whether online or in person. So I see a lot of nurses unhooking. I see a lot of people who would be customers unhooking, and this thing ultimately just coming down. So when that happens, and eventually it will, we need to be prepared for that. And that's really what I've dedicated my life to doing. And that's really what I've spent the bulk of this channel in doing, is educating people, and really have a back catalog of over a decade for people to watch videos for free. Because when it comes right down to it, you need to be able to care for your family's medical needs at home. You need to be able to provide those skills and that care without going into a grid that increasingly doesn't like you if you're a decent and kind-hearted nurse. And B, if you're a patient, can't wait to see you gone. I will say, in the grand scheme of things, the benefit that I've gotten from being a nurse, the skills that I got, really that came to me after I graduated, and that I learned just from interacting with people and how to schedule time and make sure that I made my schedule work for me and my appointments work for me instead of me working for them. That was really valuable. But also, I tell you, being able to really care for people is something that I miss terribly, because in the institutionalized medicine that's being done today, the first thing that's happening whenever people are coming into the room who are care providers is they're accessing a screen and they're not looking at patients, and it breaks my heart. So I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if in the future nurses, and this is another reason to diversify nurses, I would not be surprised in the least if you are outcompeted by robots. And actually, Elon Musk has unveiled recently helper robots. And if you were to think about this, you don't have to pay helper robots. You don't have to pay them benefits. They don't have sick days. They don't have interpersonal drama. So if you are a multi-million-dollar corporation and you exist to make sure the bottom line is taken care of instead of people by default, then you're totally going to outsource care to robots rather than utilizing nurses. You may, of course, have one nurse and use robots like CNAs, for instance, have one nurse and then 5 robots or 10 robots. But make no mistake, when they start introducing the robots into the system and the artificial intelligence, nurses are going to be out of jobs for sure. So whether you choose to diversify now or you are waiting and responding on the back foot later, it's going to happen. So not the brightest of videos per se, but I wanted to share this with you guys because I know a lot of people, and just listening to my friend the other day, just the nonsense that she has had to go through, and remembering afresh all of my own personal lessons, thought, you know what? We're going to let everybody else know about this too. If this video benefited you as a nurse, and if you'd like to share this with other nurses, please do so. And please share this video with one person you know who will benefit from it. Whether they're a nurse, an EMT, or some other healthcare professional, or you're a patient, concerned patient, or a family member, I'm sure you know someone who could benefit from it. So give this video a like, please, and share it. Also, if you'd like to see more videos like this, you can subscribe to the Patriot Nurse channel. And if you'd like to learn and train with me, you can visit the website, thepatriotnurse.com. We got lots of options for you there to continue your education. We got lots of videos here on YouTube for free. The back catalog of over 10 years is available to you for just a few little walkings of the fingers and one little click. I hope the video was helpful for y'all. Be encouraged, friends, because even though it looks dark in certain things, there's always, in every cycle of history, there's the negative, but there's also a positive that can come from it. So where there is darkness, we are to be the salt and the light. And that's where I've held for a long, long time. And that's where I intend to hold for the rest of my life. May the Lord bless and keep you all. I hope you have a very blessed week. For now, it's Patriot Nurse signing off, and I'll see y'all later.